First, on behalf of my delegation, I thank His Excellency Chris Dawson, the Governor of Western Australia, and especially our host, the presiding officers of Parliament of Western Australia, the Honourable Alana Clohesi and Honourable Stephen Trials, for your gracious hospitality and warm welcome to us into your beautiful city of Perth to enable us to attend this conference. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land in which we are gathered here today, and I pay my respect to their elders, to their chiefs, present, past, and emerging. I come before you with a deep honor and humility. For me, the subject on convention and practice in small island democracies is a lived experience, shaped by service in a parliament that has endured constitutional upheavals, democratic transition, and the continuing pursuit of parliamentary legitimacy. Convention and practice in small island democracies is not simply academic. Allow me to begin by grounding our conversation in context. The Pacific region is home to some of the world's most extraordinary democracies. We are small in landmass. We are small in population. But we are immense in ocean and carry with pride an enormous cultural heritage, and unbounded in the complexity of the democratic challenges we face daily. The Fijian Parliament serves a nation of approximately 900,000 plus people, spread across more than 300 islands, and speaking many languages, practicing multiple faiths, and drawing from at least two major ethnic traditions, indigenous Itoke and the Indo-Fijian, alongside other communities from the South Pacific and Asia who call Fiji home. This diversity is our strength, but it is also the context within which every parliamentary decision, every procedural ruling, and every convention of parliament carries extraordinary weight. In larger democracies, parliamentary conventions can be tested or challenged without attracting significant public attention. A procedural ruling in a parliament represents hundreds of millions of people, may be of interest to constitutional scholars and political observers, yet has little immediate impact on the broader public consciousness. In the Pacific Islands, however, the situation is very different. A single ruling by a speaker or a single convention on a single convention, either upheld or disregarded, can resonate across the entire nation within hours. For small island democracies, parliamentary decisions are not distant institutional matters. They are felt directly and personally by citizens. That is why the stakes is so high. This is the first and perhaps the most important truth about Pacific parliaments. Smallness amplifies everything. Errors are amplified. Courage is amplified. Injustice is amplified. And equally, when we get it right, integrity is amplified and trust is enhanced. Before proceeding further, I believe it is essential for us to know exactly, when we speak of a parliamentary convention, I know I'm preaching to converted quite a lot of you, but if I can just revisit the general frame of the subject for the purpose of my exercise. Put very simply, a convention is an accepted and established way of doing things, a shared practice that those in the parliamentary system follow, not because the law forces them to, but because it is the general accepted way of doing things. Conventions are, in a very real sense, the conscience of a parliament. They represent the accumulated wisdom of generations of democratic practice passed down by Westminster and elderly parliaments to ours, and they fill the gaps that written rules cannot anticipate. They govern the conduct of a speaker when the standing orders are silent. They guide the behavior of the Prime Minister and his cabinet and government members in relation to Parliament. They set expectations for how the opposition conducts themselves in debate, and how the government conducts itself in victory, and vice versa. Now, and this is where I ask for your most careful attention. What happens when conventions meet the realities of small island democracy? In large democracies, it is possible, not always, but possible to maintain a reasonable degree of institutional distance. The Speaker and the Prime Minister may rarely encounter one another outside the formal parliamentary setting. The committee chair and the witness appearing before the committee may be strangers. The procedural decisions of the presiding officer may be received as institutional rather than personal judgments. In the Pacific, this separation is far more difficult to maintain. And I say this not as criticism, but as an honest reflection of our reality. In Fiji, as in most Pacific nations, our political communities are intimate communities. The honourable members who sits on the opposition bench may be a childhood friend, the cousin, the in-law of the community, or a community leader of the honourable minister sitting across the floor. The Speaker, who must rule on a point of order, may have grown up in the same village as the member being ruled against. The whip who manages parliamentary business may be the same person who attends the same church as the member whose vote is needed. These are not hypothetical scenarios. They are the daily realities of governing in small island states parliaments. And this is precisely why conventions matter most in our context, not less. Because when personal relationships are so deeply woven into political dynamics, the temptation to allow personal loyalty, cultural obligation, or relational pressure to override institutional principle is ever present and ever powerful. The greatest threat to parliamentary convention in a small island democracy is not ignorance of the rules. It is a social cost of enforcing them. When a speaker must rule against a colleague, a fellow member of their own community, perhaps someone to whom they owe cultural respect, the pressure not to enforce the convention can be overwhelming. When an opposition must hold a government to account, but the leaders of both sides share family ties and community obligations, the pressure to moderate that scrutiny can be immense. What I have learned and what Fiji's parliamentary history has taught me at considerable cost is that the moment personal relations are permitted to override institutional conventions, the parliament loses something that is very, very difficult to recover from. It loses in credibility and, more importantly, trust. And without them, a parliament cannot perform its fundamental functions, which are to legislate, to represent, and to exercise oversight and scrutiny, while remaining credible and trustworthy in the eyes of the people they are supposed to represent. I do not raise this history to dwell on painful chapters. I raise it because every one of those democratic failures had at its roots a failure of convention. A moment when institutional norms were set aside, when personal ambition overrode institutional obligation, when conventions that protect democratic governance were treated as an inconvenience rather than an indispensable consideration that it should be. And from that history, the Fijian Parliament has drawn lessons that I believe are relevant to every legislation in the region. The first lesson is this: conventions must be made, explained, and actively taught. We cannot assume that members of Parliament, particularly new members, understand the conventions of the House simply because those conventions are long established. It is our Parliament, in our Fiji Parliament, we have invested in parliamentary orientation programs, in the publication of procedural guides, and in the development of a parliamentary research capacity that can advise members on the conventions that govern their conduct. Convention must be interpreted, it must be made accessible, and it must be explained not as an obstacle to political ambition, but as an architecture of democratic legitimacy. The second lesson is this: the independence of the Speaker is not merely a procedural distinction, it is a constitutional necessity. In a small island democracy, where every member knows every other member personally. The impartiality of the presiding officer is the single most important guarantee that the House functions as a parliament and not as a gathering of competing personal loyalties. I have endeavored in my short tenure to make every ruling on the basis of the standing orders and the established conventions without fear or favor, without regard to party affiliation, and without regard to personal relations. It's not always comfortable, but it's always necessary. The third lesson is this: minority rights must be protected by convention, even when the majority has the number to ignore them. In the Fijian Parliament, as in all other Westminster model parliaments, the opposition has the right to be heard, the right to scrutinize, and the right to challenge. These are not rights and privileges granted by the government of the day. They are born out and sustained in the convention of the House that belong to Parliament as an institution. When government, however, large majority maybe uses procedural mechanisms to silence opposition voices, which it is legally permissible to do, it may win the vote, but it damages the convention. And damaged convention weakens Parliament over time. The fourth and final lesson in this is this: regional cooperation must not be optional, it must be essential. Fiji has benefited enormously from engagement with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, the Australian and New Zealand parliamentary forums with bilateral parliamentary partnerships, our twinning arrangements, and with now our newly constituted Pacific Islands Parliamentary Assembly, PIPA. We have received technical assistance to an enormous degree, and we have shared our experiences. We have learned from partners who have faced similar challenges in different contexts. The Pacific Parliamentary family is a genuine community of practice, and we are all stronger for its existence. I must acknowledge the conventions of our Pacific Parliaments that do not operate in isolation from the broader international frame of our obligations under various international covenants and civil and political rights that Fiji is a party to. We are also under the ILO conventions, parties to a lot of those that contribute to the relationship that we have. We also have adopted 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Sustainable Development Goals. These international instruments are not just documents filed in the United Nations. Parliament, however, has to adopt it to assist it in its oversight, how members represent the communities they serve, and how our institutions treat the most vulnerable members of our society. They are our roadmap for the future and for our future generations. Before I conclude, allow me, if I may, to offer what I believe should be our collective vision for Parliament or Pacific Parliaments in the years ahead. We must build parliaments of genuine independence, where the presiding officers are equipped, empowered, and protected in the exercise of impartial authority. We must build parliaments of genuine transparency, where the conventions of the House are being made readily available and accessible, not only to members, but every citizen who elected them. And we must build parliaments of genuine inclusion, where women, youths, persons with disabilities, and where all communities not only have symbolic seats, but have meaningful voices. And perhaps more importantly, in regions where climate change threatens the very existence of some of our member states, where economic vulnerability is an ever-present reality, and where the demands placed on small governments are disproportionate to their resources, we must build parliaments of genuine resilience, parliaments that can withstand the pressure of political crisis, natural disasters, economic shock, and social disruption, without abandoning the conventions and the principles upon which democratic governance depends. The Honourable Presiding Officers, Honourable Members of Parliament, the Pacific is, in the words of one of our greatest regional thinkers, and I quote, not a collection of islands in the enormous sea, but a vast sea of islands. We are connected, we are interdependent, and the heart of democracy in any one of our nations affects the heart of democracy across the entire region. Close quote. Conventions are not the property of any single parliament. They are the inherited wisdom of democratic civilization, tested and refined over centuries, and entrusted to each generation of parliamentarians to protect, to honor, and to pass on. In Fiji, sadly, we have always honored that trust, but we have learned the hard way by our failures. And we are committed with modesty, with determination, and with the full weight of our institutional authority to the proposition that Parliament in this era will be the one that future generations can point to as an example of a democratic convention, observed and democratic convention practiced and strengthened. That is our obligation to our people. That is our obligation to the Pacific. And that is our obligation to democracy itself. In other words,